Okay, Shavua Tov. We are at the bottom of the Lamed Chet Amud Bet, 38b at the bottom of the Mishnah. And here we go. Hamoder hana'a mechavero. Person, he says he makes a neder that he's not having hana'a from his friend. V'nichnas levakero, and he goes to visit him. He was sick, so he comes to go visit him. We'll see who is the one that's asur on who. But so he goes to visit him because he's sick. Omed, aval lo yoshev. He has to stand and not sit. When he goes to visit him, you can visit him standing, not sitting. We'll see what that means. We'll see why. Umerapeo refuat nefesh, aval lo refuat mamon. And you can heal him, healing of the soul, and not healing of money. Like healing of like encouragement. Like, don't worry, be positive, everything's going to be okay, but not money healing, like, I'll pay for your medicine or things like that, because then it's benefiting. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. Let's see the Gemara. Kaput Lamed Tet Gimel Aleph. B'may Askina. Who are we talking about over here? What's the case? Ibish nichse mevaker. Asurin al chole. If the case is that the property of the visitor, there's the visitor and the sick person. The visitor is asur on the sick person. So the stuff of the visitor is asur on the sick person. Afilu yoshev nami. The guy could even sit there. So let's see the run, and then we'll get a more of an explanation. Top left. De'omed, my ta'ama sharigle. Standing, why is it allowed? Mishum de'mevaker mitzvah de'nafshe avi. Because when the guy comes to visit, he's doing a mitzvah. He's doing his own mitzvah visiting the sick. Unehi de'chole mithaneh memela shari. And that the sick person benefits, like he enjoys that someone comes to visit him, it's a side benefit of this person doing his mitzvah of visiting the sick. But it's not a full benefit, like let's say like giving him medicine and things like that. It's a side benefit. That's when he comes standing. The kevan sheken. So now, what's the thing with sitting? He doesn't explain it here. What's the thing with sitting? As back in the day, we're going to see soon. Back in the day, they would give, the community would pay if a person sits when he comes to visit. Because when you sit, that means you're staying there for a while, and people would, in the community, they wanted that people come visit the sick. So they say they would give, $5 if you sit there for an hour, whatever. So now, so it seems like also, that it would come from the sick person's family. So what happens here is, if you're going to be sitting, then you're going to benefit from the. So let's say the guy comes to visit and he sits. Now he's going to get paid. So from the family, so I'm benefiting from this guy. But so that's what's going on. But the Gemara asks the question. But hold on, if it's the sick person that can't benefit from me, let me just sit there, and I'm benefiting from him. I'm getting paid from him. He's not benefiting from me. So that's what's going on. That's the question. See the rest of the round. Kevan sheken afilu yoshev nami eat lelemishre mehaitama, and therefore the guy is sitting there. Let it be allowed based on this reasoning. The guy's coming to do his mitzvah. Okay, he's going to get paid from the family, but he's the visitor is benefiting. And the neder over here, it's for the sick person not to benefit. Let's read it again. The top line. What's the case? If the property of the visitor is asur on the chole, it's only going one way. It's asur on the chole. I feel let the guy sit there as well. The guy's going to get paid who's sitting, and the guy who's visiting, is benefiting, not the chole. And the opposite way around, If it's the sick person's things, is asur on the visitor. Afilu omer namilo, even maybe standing is not allowed. So maybe there's a. So we're going to see the run in a moment. So now let's say you flip it. Let's say now the visitor is asur to benefit from the sick person. So first of all, you can't sit because you're going to get paid. You're getting paid from the thing. So maybe even you can't stand, and we'll see why you can't stand. Let's see the run. The next run. If the items of the sick person is asur on the visitor, afilu omelo share nehene b'drisat haregel, because he's benefiting from the traveling. Umishum mitzvah leithanuye mi'isura. What's the benefit over here? Was he saying that he's benefiting from the travel? Afilu omed namilo. I thought the reason would be you can't even stand there. Maybe because at this point we think that he's getting, anybody gets paid.
He benefits from the issue of standing. Is that what it means?
No. Let's see over here. In the case where the possessions of the sick person are prohibited on the visitor, then the visitor should not even be permitted to stand with the person, for his mere entrance into the sick man's dwelling benefits the visitor. Accordingly, he should not be permitted to enter the man's home, even to stand with him. Why does it benefit the visitor? When he enters the home or court of another, even if he does so for others' benefit, not for his own, does nevertheless receive benefit himself. For one inevitably derives a certain degree of benefit in being able to enter a more sheltered private place. Since the visitor benefits by entering the sick person's home, he is forbidden to visit him. For one may not transgress a Nedarim to perform a mitzvah. So here he brings it from the Rashba, Beit Meir, not from the Ran. The Ran is So it's, okay, according to that explanation, the visitor is benefiting by coming into his house.
Here, there is a benefit in setting foot into a house when one is protected from heat and rain.
Okay, yeah, that's what he said over there.
Doesn't matter if he's standing or sitting.
Yes,
He enters.
Exactly, he's benefiting. The fact that he's walking in, and even though it's a mitzvah, you can't benefit if there's a sin over here because of the neder. Okay, so in the flip case, it's the visitor cannot benefit from the sick person. So even standing there, there's a form of benefit. So what's the case? Amar Shmuel. Says Shmuel. It's explanation number 1. Fourth line down the Gemara. Amar Shmuel. Says Shmuel. Leolam b'shenichse mevaker asurin ala chole. The case is, the items of the visitor is asur on the sick person. So why can't he sit there? It's asur on the sick person. Umakom shenodim sachar al yeshiva ve'enodim sachar al amida. Okay, so I revealed the answer from before. It's a place. The case is talking about a case where the place is that you receive reward for sitting and visiting the sick, and not standing. Standing, people know it's a simple thing. It's fast, but not standing. Not by sitting. Sitting is a long time. You're going to get reward for sitting. So therefore, like this. The items of the visitor is asur on the chole. So the visitor could come and stand, but not sit. Why not sit? Because then you're going to get reward. But even, we said before, even if you're getting a reward, you're benefiting from the sick person. That's allowed. The sick person can't benefit from him. One second. So what's the issue over here? If he's receiving, so le'olam, the case of the items of the visitor is asur on the sick person, and it's a place where you get reward for sitting. So this guy comes in, he could stand, he's not getting a reward, and now that he sits, he's getting a reward, but he is allowed to benefit from the sick person.
He waives.
He what?
He waives payment.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. Yes. So he waives the payment, meaning he's supposed to get paid by the sick person. He's supposed to get paid by the sick person.
Right.
And he doesn't. He says, no, don't pay me. I'm here to visit you. So now you benefited. That's supposed to cost the sick person $5. You benefited the sick person. So now, and the sick person is not allowed to benefit from this guy. So that's the case over here. Thank you, Menashe. Yeah. So therefore, you could stand but not sit. Okay, Shmuel has an explanation. Says the Gemara, my paska. Like, how? Who told you to make like that's the answer? Who told you that it's talking about that that this is the difference in that he's telling a case where he's supposed to get paid and he forgoes the money. Hakamash malan de'af b'makom shenodim sachar ala yeshiva bay lemishkal ala amida lo bay lemishkal. This comes to teach us that even in a place where even a place where you get reward, ala yeshiva by the mishkal, ala amida lo by the mishkal. For sitting, you're able to take. For standing, you're not able to take. Sorry, I only prepared last night and it was a little bit late. Take a look at the Ran. A second. There's places I feel מקום שהם מחמירים על עצמם שבאחד המידה לא שר לו המשקל. מקום שאין מחמיר על עצמו בישיבה, רקע מצווה ונמצא חולה חייב בשכרו, שנותן ממנו כלום נמצא מהנאו.
Yeah, to say that there is a not even refusing to, כשאינו נותן ממנו כלום נמצא מהנאו. על עצמם שלא ליטול שכר אפילו מישיבה. So the Ran starts by saying there's places that, what is it?
they're strict on themselves not to take even even by sitting. Even though it was allowed. Because mitzvah of bikur cholim is enough if you stand. Since they didn't want to take money on standing, they didn't take money even for sitting. In those places, if they didn't take money for sitting, then you could sit there, and like if you have a neder against this guy, you could sit there. Even in a place where they're not machmir, nevertheless, on standing you can't take payment. Therefore, מקום של מחמירים על עצמן בישיבה לקמיצה נמצא כל אחר בשכרו שאני נותן ממנו כלום, נמצא מעניין כמו שמדף במקום שנותן שכר לישיבה ואין משקל טוב, משקל על העמידה לא משקל let me see what's going on there, sorry. Says Shmuel, so Kamash Malan, even in a locale, even in a place where they take payment for visiting the sick, it's only for sitting with the patient they're permitted to take payment. For standing with the patient, they're not permitted to take payment. This means that one is never allowed to take payment for standing with the sick. Of course, there's never a reason to prohibit a visitor to stand with one to whom his benefit is forbidden. You can never prohibit someone from standing. Therefore, the Mishnah states unequivocally that such standing is permissible. So, the Gemara's question was, my Pascha, how did you know what is the generalization that the Mishnah makes regarding standing? That it is always permissible, but in a locale where they take payment for standing, it would not be permissible to stand with the patient. Why does the Mishnah state unequivocally that a visitor may stand with him? That's in the question. And maybe there are places where they take for... Oh, so... question was, so Shmuel answered, what's the case over here? In a place where they take payment for sitting and they don't take payment for standing, and you waive the payment, so you could stand there and not sit there, because you're causing them to benefit. So my pascha is asking, well, in a place, like it's, so this place is like this place is like that. So how are you answering our Mishnah for arbitrary, this place is like this place is like that. Maybe in the next place they get paid for standing. So the Gemara says, Hakadosh comes to teach us that even in a place that gets, so there's sometimes places that they don't get paid for sitting, but even a place that does get paid for sitting, so you could take, but ala amida lo b'al mishkan, there's never a place where you get paid for standing. I mean, that statement of Shmuel that was in a place where when it comes to standing, there's never a time that people charge, because all you're doing is the mitzvah. and you're not benefiting him more. So therefore, we could say a difference in the case because like one is stationary, meaning standing is always never charged. When it comes to sitting, there's times that there's places that you charge, places that you don't charge. So that's the Shmuel's answer. In a place where there's generally a charge, and you waive the fee, you can't sit there. You're benefiting the guy. But standing, that's always free. Read this English again. Hakamash the Mishnah is informing us of this. That even in a locale where they take payment for visiting the sick, ala yeshiva by mishkav, it is only for sitting with the patient that they are permitted to take payment. But for standing with the patient, they are not permitted to take payment. This means that one is never allowed to take payment for standing with the sick. Therefore, there is never a reason to prohibit a visitor to stand with the one whom his benefit is forbidden. Therefore, the Mishnah states unequivocally that such standing is permissible. So because the question on Shmuel was, because our Mishnah says you can't stand, you can't sit, but you could stand. But if you're saying that there may be a place that they take payment for standing, you can't even stand there either. So the Gemara's answering, no. Standing, there's never a case where you take payment, where you get paid for that. And therefore, when the Mishnah says you could, when a guy that makes a neder on someone else, you could stand there, it's because there's never a case where there's payment. What about sitting? Sitting, sometimes there's places that do pay, sometimes places that don't pay.
Okay, if we are in a
So
place,
we're saying even in a place that they do, that they
don't pay.
So even in a place that they don't pay, can you sit there? I think yeah, because you're not doing anything. Because you don't pay anyways.
But it's against the Mishnah.
But it's against the Mishnah. Let's see. Here the Ran says Ben be'otan mekomot ben omed ben yoshev shari. You're allowed. The yeshiva in a place where it's standing or sitting. That's the Shmuel answers. In a place where they take the Mishnah is talking about a case in a place where they pay money for sitting. If you're in a place where they don't take money for sitting, then you could sit.
So it's not considered sitting if you are not getting paid. It's not the action of sitting, but the important like the.
No, if the minhag of that place is they pay for sitting, then you can't sit.
No, I'm just trying to understand the language of Mishnah. The criteria to be yeshiva sitting is getting paid or not. Because if you're not getting paid, you can, as long as you can physically sit, it doesn't mean that you are sitting. It's not yeshiva.
Yeah, no. So Shmuel is saying our Mishnah is talking about a case where the place is that you get paid for sitting. It's not retranslating the Mishnah, but that's the case of our Mishnah. That's what the Gemara asked. How could you put a case in our Mishnah where it's talking about certain cities that they don't get paid, that they do get paid? Well, next city is going to, the Mishnah is only applicable for that case. So that's what the Gemara answered. No, for standing, everywhere didn't get paid. That's when the Mishnah says you could stand. And if a guy makes a neder on someone else, you could stand. Don't sit. Where it says don't sit, that's only in the case we get paid for sitting. But you're right. If we don't get paid for sitting, you could sit also. That's what's going on.
One question.
Yeah.
It's very common in Turkey, for example, if somebody visits a sick, they either bring food and they are always served food.
So the visitor brings food?
Usually, but either case, they are served food. Is it being benefited?
Interesting. So there's always
Always,
always?
some boreka, some
you
Jews,
give the visitor.
always.
Visitor. So that's a good thing. So maybe you're if you're not allowed to I would say if the visitor can't, if the neder was the visitor can't benefit from the choleh,
Yeah.
then I guess you can't benefit from it, unless it's not from the choleh, like the choleh's cousin who paid for the food is giving you.
I thought
Mhm.
Chole's family was an extension of him because he said that
The payment.
for sitting down comes
From
the
him or
family.
the family. Yeah, it's probably from him specifically. That's because that's where the neder was made. So let's say the burekas came from a cousin or something like that. But if let's say this guy who's sick, but let's say he's still aware, he says, I want to pay for all the money, all the food. You know what I mean? That's for all the visitors. Then you're benefiting from his stuff. You can't. Or if let's say he set aside, let's say people would set aside money for an account for people come visit me, pay them money, right? And it's from him, then that you couldn't benefit from it.
Interesting.
What about the actual benefit that the Chole is getting from a visitor? Like just the
So,
fact that he's
yeah,
there.
so he said that's not considered unless it's a physical
Only
thing. Yeah, it's the guy's doing his mitzvah. There's a side benefit. Yeah, people they like when visitors come, but it's my mitzvah is stronger over here. That's like a side benefit, but not in violation of the neder. Okay, another answer. V'bayitema. Another answer to understand our Mishnah. Kederi Shimon ben Eliakim. Gezerah shema yishhe ba'amida. Hachanami gezerah shema yishhe ba'yeshiva. You might stay there for a long time, standing, and so too over here. There's a gezerah. You might stay there for a long time, sitting. Let's see the run. So the run. Okay. So he says, the Ran says like this. The case over here, according to Rishon ben Eliakim, could be in a case where maybe it's a place where everybody, there's no payment. There's no payment. So now, but why do we tell the guy, don't sit? Because if a guy sits for a long time, then they're going to feel embarrassed not to pay him, and they're going to pay him something. And even if you refuse the payment, you're benefiting the guy. So according to this explanation, but standing, even if you stand for a long time, you're never going to get paid, because standing you're always on the way out. So that's what the Rishon ben Eliakim says. So the case of our Mishnah could even be in a case. Let's read it in the Ran, the left side. V'ibay tema kedamar Rishon ben Eliakim. The command by Perkin later on in the Perek. V'achikamar. This is what it means to say. Dina de matanitin, the law of our Mishnah, bekulu duchti ite. It can be in every city, in every type of situation. Even in a case where there's no reward for standing or sitting. And therefore, in that place, according to the law, standing and sitting is allowed, because you're not getting paid. Nevertheless, gazrina, they make a gezerah. You might sit there too long, more than the necessary. In such a case, in all cities, no one does that without payment. Like if the guy's sitting there, let's say an hour, or 2 hours, like this guy's got to get paid. You know, this guy's sitting here a long time. But by standing, we don't make a gezerah. Maybe he's going to sit too long. Since you're there, you're standing. It's noticeable that you're like going to leave. Okay, later on. So, what's the gezerah? Meaning in a place where there's no payment at all. Yet there would be a payment if a guy sits there for a long time, and therefore we say you have a neder on this guy. You could stand, because you stand there all day. You're still not going to get paid. But don't sit, because if you're going to sit for a long time, they're going to have to pay you, and even if you waive the payment, you're going to benefit the guy. Okay. Ula Amar, another answer. Now Ula though is going to switch the case. Ula Amar le'olam, really the case is b'shenichse chole asurin ala mevaker. The items of the sick person is asur on the visitor. The visitor can benefit from the chole. Ukigon de lo adre min chiyute. וכגון דלא אדרה מן חיותה. Oh, and the case is the law that he didn't adref nor neder min chiyute. He didn't make a neder for him on his life things. Like he said, I don't want to benefit from you. I don't want to benefit from you. When it comes to like life and death things, visiting or sickness, medicine, that's not included in the neder. Yachi afilu yoshev nami ha'efshar ba'amida. Okay, so step one, Ula's case is that the items of the sick person is asur on the visitor. So how could the visitor even stand? That's what the question was before. How could the visitor even stand? And the case is, so he answers, the case is that he didn't make a neder on life things. So therefore you could stand, you could go and benefit over there. Iyachi afilu yoshev nami. As the Gemara asks, if so, sit there too. If you didn't make neder on life things, sit there and benefit him. Says the Gemara, efshar ba'amida. No, you're able to stand to fulfill the mitzvah, so you have to do the minimum, which is standing. Take a quick look. That's what it means over here. Says Ula. Actually, the Mishnah deals with the case where the possessions of the sick person are prohibited to the visitor. Nevertheless, the visitor is permitted to stand with the person. He said, how can he even stand there? For the person did not place the neder upon the visitor to prohibit him from performing services necessary to his sick person's own well-being, since visits to him while he is ill are necessary for his well-being. They were not included in the neder, therefore they're permitted. Says the Gemara, if so that these visits are not included in his neder, then even sitting with him should be permitted. Why does Mishnah limit him put him to standing? Gemara explains, for it is possible to fulfill the sick person's needs with nothing more than standing. Therefore, he only excludes standing from the neder, not sitting. The barest minimum, yeah. We'll hold that one excludes from the neder only the barest minimum necessary for his well-being. Since it is sufficient if the visitor stands with him, he does not allow him to sit. Okay, so that's what's going on over here. Meaning, when he says a neder, don't benefit from me, but things I have to do in my life, I could benefit. Like I would want to benefit from someone visiting me, but at the bare minimum. The bare minimum is standing. Asks the Gemara, metive question. Chalahu v'nichnas levakero, chala beno shoelo bashuk. If let's say you have a neder on this guy, and you're sick, and the guy gets sick, you're allowed to visit him, as our Mishnah says. But if his son gets sick, you can't visit him. Ask about him in the shuk. You can't visit him though. So the Gemara says, okay, based on that statement, let's ask now a question. Bishlama le'ula, that's good according to Ula. According to Ula, that says that the case is that the sick person's items are asur on the visitor. And the case is that the neder is not including life things. So it's allowed. So it's good. What's good? You could visit him. I guess we're not his kids. I guess his kids are included in the neder. And that's so you could visit him, but his kids aren't included in him. And there's a difference between the two because for him you could visit him. I guess his kids are an extension of him in the neder, but it's not his life. The bare minimum is visiting him for his life. So it's understood why you could visit him and not his kids. And Ali Shmuel, Damar B'Shenichse Mevaker Asunin Lacholeh, Ma'ishnahu, Ma'ishna Beno. So the question is, according to Shmuel, that says that the case is that the items of the visitor are asur on the sick person. The visitor is asur on the sick person. So what's the difference? If you're now allowed to visit the sick person, why can't you visit his son? It's my stuff is asur on the sick person. It's not asur on his son. And I can even visit the sick person himself by standing, not sitting. So why can't I visit his son? So this bright is a question on Shmuel. The Ran points out that Mistama says that it's probably that the efshar that it probably in the neder when the guy said don't benefit from me. Okay, but benefiting life things, I'll take that benefit, but not for my kids. I mean, like Berim is me, as we explained. So, but the question's on Shmuel. Why can't you visit the son? If you could visit the guy himself, why can't you visit the son? The Ran says, "Klomer the Adar Rabbi no shari tfeh mishum moder mimenu, she'ena moder mimenu." It should be allowed even more because you didn't do a neder on him. You did it on the father. If you can visit the father, why can't you visit the son? This question is a question on Shmuel.
And doesn't pikuach nefesh override soul?
Pikuach nefesh. This is not the case of pikuach nefesh.
No,
Of course,
it's
you do everything.
It's benefiting for health.
Benefiting for health. So what the?
That's why it's.
No, it's
benefiting
not.
otherwise.
It's not pikuach nefesh. Everything's allowed, but this is,
It's not that urgent.
It's not that urgent. Yeah, it's that probably when he made a net, don't benefit from me. I mean, no, the benefits out of the something has to do with my life. Not life and death. That's everything. That's everything's allowed, but it has to do anything to benefit my life. My physical life. I'll allow, but not for my kids. Not anything more. But now, according to Shmuel, that says it's where the nichse mevaker asurin lacholeh, the items that belong to the visitor are asur on the sick person. So the visitor could go visit the sick person. Why can't he visit his son? 4 lines up from the bottom. Amar lach matnitin shenichse mevaker asurin lacholeh. Braita b'shenichse choleh asurin mevaker. The Gemara makes a simple answer. The simple answer is we have a Mishnah and a Braita. This mitiv is a Braita. So Shmuel will tell you like this: the Mishnah's case, our Mishnah is that the items of the visitor are asur on the choleh. The Braita's case, so why can't you visit the son? Because the Braita's case is that the stuff from the choleh is asur on the mevaker. So the mevaker can't visit the son, can't visit the father. So you switch the case, and therefore that's why it's asur in that case. That's why it's mutar in that case. You're going to ask the same question, my pascha. How do you know to set it up like that? Amar Rava, Amar Shmuel, says Rava. Amar Rava, Shmuel matnitin kashite. Shmuel. Why did Shmuel set it up like that? The Mishnah is this case and the Braita is that case. Because he had a question in the Mishnah. My area the Tani Omed Aval Lo Yoshev Shmamina de Nichse Mevaker Asurin Lacholeh. Because he had a question in the Mishnah. Why did the Mishnah say you could stand and not sit? It must be that the items of the visitor are Asur and Lacholeh. He wants to prove from the Mishnah that that's the case. Why is that a proof from the Mishnah? Ask who it is.
What is this?
Shavua Tov, Meir. Shavua Tov.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, let's
Is
see.
he allowed to come in?
Yeah, he's allowed to come in. Let me see the. Running out of time. Let me see the. So what's Shmuel's reasoning for making the Braita and the Mishnah different cases? He found in the Mishnah difficult to interpret in this manner. For if the Mishnah is discussing this case, what is the reason it teaches he may stand but may not sit? Sitting should also be permitted. Shmuel therefore concluded that we may learn from this ruling that the Mishnah actually deals with a case where the possessions of the visitor are prohibited to the sick person. The possessions of the visitor are asur on the sick person. He says that must be the case of the Mishnah. Because the question on Shmuel now is my pasuk. Why do you establish it that way? So because the case of the Mishnah must be that the possessions of the visitor are asur on the sick person. And if that's the case, that's why that's why you could stand and not sit. The answer is that although Shmuel agrees that we can assume that the vow or excluded services necessary to his own well-being from the neder, he does not agree with Ula's definition of the services. Shmuel maintains that having a visitor sit is also necessary to the sick person's well-being. Certainly. The Navar will likewise exclude the service from his neder. According to the Mishnah, this is in case where possessions of the sick person are prohibited to the visitor. The Mishnah should allow the visitor to sit. But the Mishnah actually forbids him to sit. Of course, it deals not with the neder prohibiting the possession of the patient and the visitor, but with the neder prohibiting the visitor's possessions to the patient. The visitor is accordingly forbidden to sit with the patient for one of two reasons: because it is a locale where one receives compensation for sitting sick, or because the rabbis forbade sitting for fear that he would stay longer than necessary. The Braita, however, does not differentiate between standing and sitting. That's what's happening. The Braita we saw doesn't differentiate between standing and sitting, just as you can't visit a son. So the Braita, however, does not differentiate between standing and sitting. Shmuel is therefore able to interpret it as discussing a case where the possessions of the sick person are prohibited to the visitor. So that makes sense because it doesn't include that case. But because the Mishnah is talking about a case where you could stand and visit him but not sit and visit him, so it must be that the case is that the items of the visitor are asur on the chole. The items of the visitor are asur on the chole. So the items of the visitor are asur on the chole. And now if you sit and then you waive the money, so he's going to benefit?
Sick person benefits. Right?
Sick person benefits and he can't.
But he can stand.
And he is the one who's not allowed to benefit.
And he's on the right. Okay, maybe we'll revisit this part, but the next year is actually very interesting. It's going to talk about the source of Bikur Cholim and a lot of interesting things of Bikur Cholim. Okay, so that's how Shmuel ends off with the answer that there's a difference between the Mishnah and the Braita. Chazak Yeruch.
Thank you very much.